Nobody in their right mind's probably going to do it the way I did it, where I built up $160,000 in debt with a $60,000 car on top of that, on that.
All right, so we're finally here, and this is going to be the episode on James Helfersteig. So to give you guys a little context first, there's a reason why I've put off on this video for a long time. And the main reason is because James is just not somebody I normally talk about. He's not what I'm focused on. See, you have to say really egregious things in order for me to come after you, so to speak. So when we did this particular video where I say reseller gurus are the worst, I give all the examples to exactly why. It's because they break out a lot of whiteboards, they try to inflate their wisdom.
That being said, I have another method that's faster, and that is the 1-3-1 method, which is you start with one problem, you come up with 3 solutions, and then you can either ask me.
So right now I'm thinking, why is that familiar?
What I do is this thing called the 1-3-1 rule, which is when people come to me with problems or challenges, I ask them back, what's the 1-3-1? It's the one specific problem we're talking about, because a well-defined problem is a problem half solved. The other one is 3 viable options. The 1-3-1 rule, saying to anybody that comes to you with a problem, can we define what's the one thing you want to talk about? What is the challenge? Perfect. What are the 3 viable options that you've evaluated? Well, I don't know. How long would it take for you to go and do some research? Give me a day. Perfect. And when you do, can you also recommend one of the options that you think you should move forward with? What you've done is you just taught them to fish.
And what does it sound like when a creator properly credits someone?
Are you going to be an asset and provide value, or going to be more of a liability? I had Dan Martell on a couple months back on the podcast, and he says that he utilizes the 1-3-1 method with his team. The 1 would be like, okay, what's the issue? And then 3, he'd be like, if you come to me with an issue, come to me with 3 possible solutions that you've already thought of. And then the last one would be, what's the one solution that you would recommend that we move forward on? And he's like, they come to me with the 1-3-1, and it's like, yeah, we just go with it.
They do all sorts of things that are objectively not true or ethically no good. For example, if I go ahead and blow this up to play for you guys again, right? The whole idea of mystery boxes, this is what he had to say.
Or you have extra that you want to get rid of, you can do a mystery box. You can say, I can guarantee that there is $100 minimum of value in here according to eBay or according to market value at the time, and then you get to sell it. So people start bidding on it, or they can say, or you can say something like, every box has a minimum of $100 and I'm selling it for $40.
Right. So clearly there's something wrong with the ethics on this, right? Because you're giving people stuff that you can't get rid of and then saying that it's worth $100. Anyways, so in the comments over here, I had somebody ask me, what do you think about James, my boring, awesome reseller, et cetera, right? So here's the thing. The reason why I said that I've been asked to do a video on James about like 20 times, it's because people come at me with different names. The Redoption Agency, my boring, like whatever. And I don't know who you're talking about, right? Until now, I finally put it all together that it's all the same guy. That's how I see. There's been like 20 requests for this already. And one of the biggest problems is that the requests for these come with a malicious tone. And that's not what I'm about. I'm not going to make a video on James because you don't like James. That's not right. That's not what I do. I'm not a mean-hearted person. What makes me cold is that I separate way too much emotion and logic because just doing business for too long. So I'm not always good at the riz, but I'm very good at the mechanics. So when we argue the hows and stuff, that's what I'm all about. Anyways, that's just how I try to provide value. On this channel, I do my best to, argue things from the lens of effectiveness, efficacy, But as we go through the comments over here, I want you guys to hear what I had to say, which is I've been asked to drop a video on James for over 20 times, and I've mostly chosen not to. The regulars over at his channel despise me for sure, because I think they just don't understand me. they are part of a diehard group of resellers. They think that I think that they're cult members, but I never said the word cult. But there is a certain cognitive dissonance between all of their actions and the stuff that they say. So I've decided to finally speak about him and his followers soon. I just haven't thought of the best tone to present it because it will mostly be a very sad episode. So I think that, this is what James does, right? Like, I don't really get to finish a thought or perform an action or whatever before he kind of like jumps the gun on stuff. And you'll see what I mean in a bit. They are not bad people, but they are misguided and in certain parts hypocritical because they are emotion driven. And James openly admits to this, that he is very emotional. When we talk business, I only argue from an angle of efficacy. I think subjective conversations are just personal and pointless because, okay, that's what you prefer. Cool beans. Can I go now? I don't have anything to add, So when people tell me they do reselling for fun or for the thrill, I genuinely have no response for it. So when they push back against me and say, well, I like the thrill, the chase, or the hunt, or whatever, I say, cool. Like, I don't push back to that. Then do what you want to do. I put out videos, and if you resonate, great. If you're ready to evolve, great. That's what I'm here for. In fact, I'm puzzled by their need to tell me. It's like a child showing me their drawings, So there's really nothing to do other than say, very nice, good for you. So, I'll entertain a child, but not an adult. So later on, Cat Garden says, okay, thank you. It's just that, like, I'm not sure if I want to list like 50,000 items. Right. So in his content, it's making some people think that, like, they got to work their way up to James's level and have like 50,000 items. That is a lot of SKUs for, not that much volume, right? So it's a lot to manage. I have about like a little over 20 items. So basically it's a lot more manageable. But between those 20 items, all of them sell hundreds and thousands per month. So I mentioned that, like, well, the guy is 160K in debt. And how do I know this? It's because he said so. So she says, okay, thanks, because all I hear is him talking about his thousands and his Porsche. So we're going to get to his Porsche in a little bit. And then I mentioned, well, it's not paid off, again, because he said so. Now you see why I keep putting off talking about him. I'm critical about strategy. This is personal stuff. I'm not mean. I want the best for people. So she says, understood. And then somebody came over and said, James doesn't need this right now, so leave him alone. And I said, well, then tell his minions to leave me alone because, it kind of goes both ways, right? And then he comes over and then he says, wrong. You may want to pay attention before you spread false information. Won't make you look good. I always, when somebody suddenly goes false, like, I always think of Dwight Schrute. Anyways, so let me give you a little more context of how this is happening, right? I was on the Profit First Reseller podcast. Now, contrary to popular belief, okay, it's just because I'm a private labeler, but I'm not locked into the identity. That's just my activity. Doesn't mean that I think everybody should get into private labeling. That's just one method. What Joe does, he has positioned himself from what? Arbitrage reselling over to having vendors now and having semi-replenishable listings. And his results, 4 times the amount of, your average reseller, but he doesn't work 4 times as hard. That's what I want for everyone. This is what my channel is about. To get that mindset shift to say, like, okay, look, how do we do more? How do we think of like different kinds of strategies and tactics? Hard work is hard work. I totally respect hard work. When we use statements like work smarter, not harder, true. And is there ever a time where you should work harder and not smarter? I would argue that we should work hard and work smart at the same time. Ultimately, money is a byproduct of effective work, effective quality work. is going to bring you more results. If you resonate with this message of that you get out of it what you put in, then think of what you put in kind of like nutritious fuel. So if you are performing hard work plus good strategies, you know what I mean? It's going to nurture your business so much more than just hard work. That's kind of the message that I'm trying to put out there. And I think we could all agree with that. It's just, very standard stuff. So if you don't think of it as a us versus them, well, we're resellers and he's a private label, blah, blah, blah. I have no allegiance to Jeff Bezos. I have no allegiance to China. China just happens to be the world's #1 producer. Amazon just happens to be the world's #1 marketplace. So as an entrepreneur, I just think to myself, well, how can we connect these two things for the best results? That's just how I'm thinking. And for people who want the same thing, I help them out. So just to give you guys a quick glimpse, right? I have, been chatting with a lot of factories recently because I have the Pegasus Blueprint.com where I start to offer help to some subscribers who are ready to get into having factory support for their product idea. So over here, you can see that this is like a sizing chart for sweaters and stuff because I got somebody who's interested in doing like functional workwear. I don't want to get into the details of it because I'm sworn to secrecy for all of them. But you can see over here, I have, a whole bunch of different kind of conference chats and stuff. And they do a little English, they do a little Chinese. Here's me speaking a little bit of Chinese just for context.
所以我们今天最基本的就是说话算话而已。
Okay, so basically what I said there is that today we need to be accountable for that was my spiel of try to haggle prices with them and stuff. Okay, so we go into this whole trust. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here. The point is that I have another conference here, another one, and they're all involved with my secretary here. Okay, LD Pan over here is my secretary, and she's my eyes and ears on the ground and stuff. So for a lot of people who are wondering, okay, how do you do the tariff stuff? How do you whatever? The answer is I have people. I go as far as that. Okay. Anyways, so in this conversation, okay, James's name was never mentioned. I never brought up anything at all. But then he had to go ahead and leave this comment and say, as I've stated in my videos, as if let me set the record straight, when nobody asked, no, you weren't even mentioned, you're not even part of this. Not everyone creates a business to get rich. Coming from absolutely nothing in life, I created mine for peace, happiness, and not having to worry, to avoid bologna sandwiches, cockroaches, drive-by shootings, and the product of my surroundings. This is James Helfersay, by the way, on my other channel. Okay. Then why was your knee-jerk reaction to get a Porsche if this is your message? That's what I think the cognitive dissonance is, right? You're saying one thing, but then your actions is something else. And, for a long time, his banner was this, from poor to Porsche kind of thing. So let's talk about the Porsche for a little bit, because guess what? I'm a car guy. A lot of people, you already know, I'm in the automotive field. So when I first heard about his poor to Porsche stuff and whatever, I was like, oh, that's very cool. Okay, let's see what he got. And he got himself a Porsche Macan. And immediately I was just like, ooh, because if I was his friend, I would tell him probably don't get the Macan. And the reason is because the Macan is essentially an Audi Q4. So it's a Porsche technically, but you're paying Porsche prices and Porsche maintenance for it, So, getting value and stuff as a business owner, that just kind of something I wouldn't do. Now, I got a review over here that actually kind of concurs with what I'm saying, which is, on one hand, the Porsche Macan is a big SUV that drives like a sports car. It's fast, it's comfortable, and it handles very well for a vehicle of its size. Same could be said for the Q4. On the other hand, this isn't a vehicle you want to own long term. Maintenance and repairs on the Macan are ridiculously expensive, to the point where it'll have you giving it the middle finger every time you walk up to it. You've been warned. So it says, think of the Macan ownership as being in a relationship with a really hot but high maintenance individual. The first few months is going to be awesome, but you'll be looking for any excuse to bail when that first repair bill comes. So when we hop on James's channel here, and I just want to show you guys that when I did a search for like his Porsche content, I got this little short over here, and it says new brakes cost what? And I can't really go through too much of his other stuff because the truth is that like if you look here, James has 3.3 thousand videos, so it's really difficult to go through his content. So I'm kind of not going to do that. But if we click on this and watch this together,
I may have just paid $3,000 for new brakes. But you know what? This is probably the most proud $3,000 I've ever spent.
ooh,
Coming from nothing. Coming from a poor upbringing. And being able to drive this, man, that was my dream growing up. Walking through the rich neighborhoods, looking at the houses and the cars, going, one day I would like to drive one of those cars.
right. So again, coming back to his original comment of not everybody wants to get rich, but then your first action is to go get a Porsche, and then it's because it was your dream. It was always your dream. That's what you said here. Now, I don't want to take any of his stuff out of context, right? I'm pretty sure I'm not doing that right now. And the thing is, this is why I don't come at him, because look, a man's got to have his respect. He's very upset at me at the moment. I know there's no way I could really communicate with him. And in this whole video, when I said that things are going to get really sad, I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I mean, like, I'm genuinely sympathetic to his plight because he is so much in debt. So let's get into that real quick. Okay. So when it comes to his critique of me, he excuse me, he did this video 8 months ago because I did this video talking about, you know, why low STR is bad advice. In its context, there has been a lot of people at the time talking about like high STR, low STR, and how to make low STR work. And a lot of the argument was that the way you make it work is that you have to have a combination of low STR and high STR. But when you think of the way it's worded, if you knew that it's going to be low STR, then why bother? Then just do the high STR, right? So genuinely, I could forgive the idea that like, look, we got to put stuff up, we got to try it, and then we got to find out. So you don't know if it's high or low until we try. And then when you get stuck with it, now we just found out that it's very low STR. But again, coming back to my argument, if you knew it's high or low, then what is the point? So I made this video to emphasize this and talk about opportunity costs, okay? So in front of us, we have a little sheet here that I put together with ChatGPT. But before we go any further, I just want you guys to know that I'm very responsible with my content. Listen to what I had to say here. So we set up some parameters here on ChatGPT. Now, a real quick caveat, right? I want to point out that ChatGPT is not the end all be all of things, okay? At the end of the day, you still need to be the source material to stuff, right? Don't think that you could just plug it to ChatGPT because and then just, you know, throw it out into public, because you will get some seriously embarrassing results if you're not able to proofread the math to yourself, right? Right. Pretty good advice, right? So I'm very careful with my work. This whole thing was basically talking about how you don't want your money tied up in goods because of how much more potential if your money keeps coming back to you and how much more that you could do. Therefore, low STR, not so good. In James's review of this, he got really caught up in books, saying that that's not the way that books sell because books don't sell, blah, 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 whatever, which after watching Back from Burnout, 100% agree with James. Books are very hard to sell. But it really wasn't about books. It could have been about, like, you know, rhino horns for all I care. It was just about item X. I just wanted a relatable item to teach the math and how much it can compound. That's what the lesson was. Another thing that I wanted to point out was in this particular video, one of the biggest questions in reselling is exactly this one. The challenge is, where do you consistently source these great items to sell that the person who owns it isn't already selling it online themselves. So what ended up happening is that John kind of glossed over this. Now, some people in the comments have said, right, oh, it's because this guy is just trying to fish for John's contacts. So when I made this argument, immediately the whole Hell for State clan is like, oh, he's trying to fish for John's contacts. Guys, I attend trade shows. I go to CES and I go to Apex and SEMA like year after year. I don't source like this. It needs to be full factory support. They have to be able to subtly scale to 10,000 pieces if I need it. Otherwise, it's not worth my time to do that. So I don't really care where he gets his pallets from, guys. Calm down, okay? I don't mean it in a condescending way, but it's just that I'm heavily misunderstood. Again, I have my work cut out for me over here with the Chinese contacts. Anyways, so let's talk about exactly what happened, right? So when James saw that video, he went ahead and then did a review on it. So I just want to make it clear, I don't just go digging around into James's channel, okay? It's because he tagged me here. So I was just like, oh, okay. And now he got my attention. So he wanted me to see this. So when we jump into, exactly what his critique stuff is, right? I just want to start it off here and show you guys kind of what he said. So basically this whole video, I'm not going to misrepresent him. It's going to be exactly what he says. I have receipts for all of it.
It's not going to work. So what he's doing here, and I haven't made it past the 7-minute mark, so we'll see what else he has to say.
So right here, you already know that he hasn't even made it past 7 minutes and he's already critiquing me. So again, I watch a lot of videos. I make sure that I know what I'm talking about. I make sure I didn't miss anything. So many times I watch things 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Let's say some creator puts out like a silly AI thing, and then before I just go ahead and jump on it, and I didn't miss, and I totally missed the watermark that says Sora, I'm gonna look pretty silly, right? So I'm very careful about this. But him, because he's so triggered by what I said, he just jumped on, like started critiquing right away, right? So throughout this whole video, many times I never even got to finish a thought and he's already critiquing me mid-sentence after mid-sentence, right? Which is okay, I understand. Now, let's go over to some other timestamps that I have here. Okay, so this one kind of stuck with me because he labels me as a reseller, and week in and week out, I tell people I am not a reseller. I don't know what else to do other than to tell people that I'm not a reseller. And to this day, I still have people tell me, well, your way of reselling, and I'm just like, I'm not a reseller. And then other people who are like, well, you don't qualify to talk about this because you're not a reseller, et cetera, et cetera. So am I or am I not? I'm here telling you that I'm not.
Well, I don't know what he's selling then. If he's selling stuff by quantity, he's got a different source than most resellers, right?
Correct. I have one of the most advanced sourcing methods, so I get as much quantity as I need. I have full factory support. So the fact that he still labeled me like, I don't know what kind of reseller this guy is, it means that you don't know anything about me and you didn't even watch more than 7 minutes. So it's kind of unfair, right? Guys, to be honest, this situation kind of reminds me of like a Louis C.K. joke about how Columbus mistaken the Indians when he first came to the country.
You're not Indians? No. You're Indians.
This is why I never clapped back, right? Because he said this.
Did the business. Nobody in their right mind's probably going to do it the way I did it, where I built up $160,000 in debt with a $60,000 car on top of that, included in that. So $100,000 in product debt.
Right. So this is where I get that information from, because he said so, $100,000 in debt, and then another $60,000 on top because of the car. Why label it as $160,000 when a Porsche Macan is exactly $60,000, and that means you didn't pay it off, right? Or you wouldn't frame it in the words like that. So when I heard this, like I'm deeply concerned. You would think that I would be mad. I'm just like, like scoff or whatever. That wasn't my reaction at all. I was just like, oh, this is very troubling. If you had the $60,000, you should have put it towards the $100,000 in debt, right? Because the thing is that debt compounds, and you're not running a business that necessarily compounds in sales, but your debt is going to compound. This is very dangerous. I don't know if he's out of the debt now. This video was 8 months ago. I mean, there's a lot of people with student loan debts, like less than $160,000, and they're stuck in there and they can't get out of it, right? So 160,000 is just very steep to try to climb out of, because, you know, how'd you get into this to begin with, right? It's because you didn't have, so it slowly accumulates. Now, another thing that I want to show you guys is something that I also thought was kind of alarming, where he talks about, basically, I believe this is about his death pile. Okay.
Percent of it is slow sell-through rate stuff. So you're basically betting on your knowledge of what you're buying, that 1 to 5% is going to get you your money back quickly and then some. And then the rest of the slow sell-through rate stuff builds up over time to create. If I had all 5 storage lockers listed,
that was shocking to me when he said, if I had all 5, so you have 5 storage lockers worth of unlisted items. Okay, so now I understand what James's concern is, right? At the time when I was talking about opportunity costs, see, he's trying to say that, no, look, the way you do low STR is the idea that I get it for pennies on the dollar, very, very cheap. That way I only have to sell a couple of copies to basically get my whole investment back. And then everything else is free and is basically gravy on top for me to sell that. So all I need is room and space. James, I am a businessman. When you said what you said, I get it. I get it right away. But there's still the caveat of free parking. So if we go over here to 3143, he says exactly that.
Buying those low sell-through rate items is because they build up over time. I have an efficient way of listing them, storing them. I have the room to store them. I have an efficient way to ship them. That's all part of the business model.
Right. So his edge is that I have the room. So this is where, like, you know, I think a lot of people get tripped up with, you know, calling their business a business, because if you're still operating out of the garage and out of the basement, and then if I asked you, if you had to get separate storage and pay for it, or professional warehouse, would your business collapse under its own weight? And if the answer is yes, then there's an issue here, because you are personally subsidizing for the business. If we're going to be really treating it like a business, then the business needs to be able to stand on its own. It can't just be us supporting it. That's kind of like, you know, a money pit, right? Of a child who just, like, you know, you just keep giving them money over and over again. At some point, they got to be independent and be able to stand on their own. So again, you could see that this is why I've never went after James, because I don't argue stuff like this. The only thing that in his video that he said, right, was we make our money when we buy, which is exactly how he got into this in the first place. So at 34 over here, right, and then just give it a little more, you could hear him say it here, I think.
I built up $160,000 in debt with a $60,000 car on top of that, included in that. So $100,000 in product debt, because you make your money when you buy.
Okay, see, so this is the issue, right? If James and I were good friends, you know, it would be so much easier for us to speak, because he'll probably be more receptive to my words. And then I'll tell him, no, brother, it's not you make your money when you buy. It, because you're missing some info to it, right? It's not wrong. It works in real estate, because real estate is, you know, if it's a good market, like, you know, you're going to sell. So that is the caveat, if you know you're going to sell it. So that means the sale has to already be in the bag. I have a pre-order. I did a Kickstarter campaign. There's already people who are waiting in line for this. It's a labubu, you know, there's gonna, you know, it's gonna fly. Right. So if it's not already part of an existing pipeline, then saying I make my money when I buy is just simply not true. if you're getting a whole bunch of stuff very cheap just to put them online, and then I still got to wait for the sale, that's not making money when you buy, right? It's when making money when you buy is when fulfilling the order is the last step. Then it works. So what you guys don't know is that on April 13th here, I actually did try to reach out to James directly because he left a comment on a certain video that I did on Tech and Sports, et cetera, et cetera. And then I said, hello, James, appreciate you for, trying to be civil. So rather than constantly go back and forth over small text, would you like to chat? I could give you my Discord. We'll talk about our business philosophies. It'll be private, no gotchas, no recordings, no nonsense. I promise to keep it friendly. I think if we both have a better understanding of each other, it will help to ease what you're feeling. And if not, no problem, I'll leave you alone. But I think if we spoke, would be nice. Mason T. There you go. So I did try to reach out to the guy before, and he's never responded. So, I could only do so much. But now I know that he is clearly furious with me because if you watch this video towards the end of it, wow.
So you want to play? I'm gonna give you some advice. You want to play? Watch my content. Watch it all. Because if you get anything wrong, it's not only going to make you look stupid, but I'm going to bury you making yourself look stupid. So if you want to play, be cautious, but bring it on. Because this boy's ready. Ooh. I feel like a kid again.
Did he really just say, I feel like a kid again? Like, we're going to meet 3:30, like behind the bleachers or something like that? The thing is that, like, as I constantly tell people, right? If you don't want to make money, you don't want to learn how to earn more or whatever, then, I mean, that's fine. You're already doing that. I just don't understand your need to tell it to me, right? And I don't really know what he means by like, hey, do you want to play or whatever? Because now you guys know why I never talked about this and I just held back on it because I genuinely have sympathy for this person, okay? If we have to go back and then, look at this particular video, right? I think I also have a timestamp here where 31:43, right? Where he talks about like having focus medication. Oh, this was kind of concerning for me as well.
You're not necessarily, even with me, with all my low sell-through rate items, sure, I'm going out and I'm buying. Why I'm buying those low sell-through rate items is because they build up over time. I have an efficient way of listing them, storing them. I have the room to store them. I have an efficient way to ship them. That's all part of the business model that I have tweaked over 23 years to make it as quick as possible. I can list an item a minute. And if I had the focus, which I still need, thinking about going to the doctor to get some focus medication, I could sit here for 8 hours and list an item a minute.
You're going to list 480 items? So, I don't know if that's kind of a flex or not. It sounds like torture to me. I wish you didn't have to do that. That's what I really wish for you. I wish happy, like, good things. You know what I mean? This is what I mean. Like, people have me completely wrong, and then you do stuff like this, and then you're just like super angry, and I really don't even know what you're talking about. So coming back, guys, his last couple of videos that he did, you know what? I really want to say good things about James. Okay, I really do, because check this out. Okay, this is some of his previous work, right? His recent work is actually kind of unhinged, right? Because, this one of him holding a toilet, and then this one talking about being on antidepressants. And in this one, he mentioned about like, seeing things, hallucinating, seeing like what he thought might have been a bat, and then a cat that appears and then disappears. Like it was wild. Again, I can't watch his stuff because it's like, 30 minutes, more than 30 minutes long. And it's not about anything really damaging to the community. It's just his video diaries. So I point to you again, right? You have 3,300 videos. Like nobody could do it. I can't do it. Okay. You got me there. Like, I'm not going to watch all your stuff because like, I can't do it. But I just want to point this out. When it comes to like his popular videos, other than this roller coaster thing here that really has nothing to do with what his channel's about, he used to do like all this sneaker content. Yo, like it's actually pretty impressive because you have to be knowledgeable, right? Sneakers, especially high-end sneakers, this is a high ASP item. There's a certain barrier to this. You can't just get into this with no knowledge whatsoever. So, he's not just your simple reseller, right? But he doesn't make this content anymore. And I watched a couple of these videos because they were lighthearted fun. And look, this one's only 2 minutes. This one's 2 minutes. So it was, I'll give him 2 minutes, right? And he just seems like so much happier of a person here. So even though he's talking about like how he did reselling and whatever, and now he's found happiness, I would say, James, this is where you were the happiest. And I thought this stuff was awesome, because aren't there like a whole bunch of kids on TikTok who are also doing the high-end sneakers and selling, Nikes and stuff to rappers and whatever, and they're killing it, right? Because these sneakers could go from like $350 to like, $15,000. Like I've seen ridiculous prices before, but I don't know enough about Nikes and things like that. So one of James's biggest criticisms of me is that, I somehow have to basically use other people's names and stuff like that in order to get any views or whatever, right? But in actuality, like if you look at my videos here and then you just sort by like most popular, my most popular one is actually how to start a business with Temu, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other one that I did over here with, talking about the initial thoughts on the eBay stuff, right? And then another one here where I talk about the algorithm and I don't really feature anyone in particular. So I could make the same silly argument, and I don't want to do that, right? Which is like, oh, well, you can't get anybody to watch your videos unless it's about Nike, so you're coattail riding off of their brand. Like no, I think that's silly, Clearly, he has, substance and knowledge about this stuff, and he's offering insight, and what he's doing here is transformative. And I argue that I do exactly the same thing. I disagree with the people that I'm critiquing, and I'm very careful to make sure that I'm putting out the proper explanations to stuff, as well as fully explain why I do the critique videos. So yeah, that's it, guys. This is the video on James Helferstay, right? What makes it sad is this. I know he doesn't want to hear a word that I have to say. Probably doesn't trust me, doesn't believe me, like whatever, I know I can't communicate with them. And this is what happens when we can't communicate. What happens? We fight. And this is what's happening in the political sphere, right? Because people can't agree on words. And that's the problem. When you can't agree on words, you can't communicate. And when you don't communicate, you fight. So that's really what the problem is. I believe firmly that in this lifetime, James and I would never be friends, because we can't get past certain things. I'm just pointing out the certain mechanics of stuff, and he is taking it to a whole identity level thing, right? And I'm just saying that's really not what it's about. So I don't know, maybe next life, you know what I mean? But yeah, guys, now you understand like what I'm about. And I made this video to really let everybody at home know, right? What kind of material that I go after and what I don't, why I never went after James, because he's got a lot of other issues, okay? And I want to say to all my followers and stuff, if you are a lounger, okay, I'm not going to be happy if you go over there and bug James. Don't do that, okay? What his people does or whatever, that's fine. I've actually been a YouTuber for like over 12 years, okay? So I'll be okay.